The stars looked different from this part of the galaxy. Ambassador Krelvox stood at the viewing chamber of the Zeraxian flagship and stared at the unfamiliar constellations. His 6 limbs were tense against his body, and his breathing sacs expanded and contracted rapidly. Fear was not an emotion Zeraxians admitted to feeling, but if there was ever a time for it, it was now. "Ambassador," said his aide Melix from behind him, "the human communication frequency is ready." Krelvox turned slowly. His species was not built for sudden movements. The chitinous plates that covered his blue-gray skin clicked softly as he faced his aide. "Are we certain this is our best option?" Melix's compound eyes flickered with the purple light that indicated sadness. "It is our only option, Ambassador." 60 solar cycles ago, the choice had been easy. The Zeraxian survey vessel had detected the small human ship drifting helplessly between star systems. Captain Jorgtek had followed the basic rules of space travel. You never leave another species to die in the void. The humans had called their ship the Golden Horizon, and it had carried 12 colonists in frozen sleep, lost after their navigation systems failed. Back then, humans were newcomers to space travel. The Zeraxian Empire spanned 1,000 star systems, while humans had barely reached beyond their own solar system. Returning the lost colonists to the nearest human outpost had been a simple act of kindness from a powerful empire to a young species. The human captain, William Carter, had been extremely grateful. Krelvox remembered the strange pink-skinned being standing before the Zeraxian Council, his voice shaking with emotion as he promised that humanity would never forget this act. "We owe you one," Carter had said through the primitive translation device. "If you ever need help, call us. Humanity pays its debts." The council had been amused. What could these primitive beings possibly offer the mighty Zeraxian Empire? But they had accepted the humans' frequency code as a gesture of goodwill. Krelvox had kept it all these years, through his rise from junior diplomat to ambassador. Now, the mighty Zeraxian Empire existed only in memory. The Hive Collective had appeared without warning from the spaces between galaxies. Their weapons bent reality itself. They used controlled black holes as weapons, swallowing entire planets. 3 billion Zeraxians had died in the first wave of attacks. Now only 3 million remained, huddled in the last fleet of generation ships. "How long until the Hive ships reach us?" Krelvox asked. "Less than 2 standard days," Melix replied. "Our scouts report 57 war vessels." Krelvox moved to the communication terminal. Their options had run out. They had tried fighting and failed. They had tried running and been pursued. They had tried hiding and been found. Now they would try the unthinkable, asking for help from a lesser species. "Open the frequency," he said. The terminal hummed to life. Krelvox's upper limbs operated the controls with practiced ease. He input the code that had been stored in the diplomatic archives for 6 decades. "This is Ambassador Krelvox of the Zeraxian Remnant," he said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into the human language called English. "I speak to the humans. We are calling in our favor." He closed the transmission and waited. Interstellar communication was not instant. Even with the best technology, there would be delays. "Will they even receive it?" Melix asked. Their technology was so primitive. "We must hope," Krelvox replied. The 2 Zeraxians stood in silence. Outside the viewing chamber, thousands of refugee ships clustered together in the emptiness of space. Each contained hundreds of frightened civilians, the last of their kind. The terminal chimed unexpectedly fast. "A response already?" "This is Admiral Lisa Blackwood of the United Earth Defense Force," said a female human voice. "We receive your message, Ambassador. Coordinates confirmed. Hold your position. Humanity remembers." Melix looked at Krelvox in surprise. "That was quick." "Too quick," Krelvox agreed. "The signal travel time should have been hours at minimum." A second message followed immediately. "Ambassador, we've been monitoring Hive Collective movements. We're aware of your situation. Expect our arrival within 24 hours. Do not engage the enemy. Blackwood out." Krelvox's secondary heart began beating faster. 24 hours? That's impossible. Even if they left immediately, no ship could reach us that quickly. Unless their technology has advanced significantly, Mielik suggested. In 60 cycles? No species develops that quickly, Krelvox said. But doubt crept into his mind. Humans had shown unusual adaptability. Still, to advance from primitive space travel to faster-than-light technology capable of crossing vast distances in such a short time seemed impossible. Word of the human response spread quickly through the refugee fleet. Some felt hope for the first time in months. Others scoffed at the idea that humans could help against an enemy that had defeated the mighty Zeraxian fleet. Krelvox was summoned to the command ship, where the surviving Zeraxian leadership had gathered. "You truly believe these humans will come?" asked Elder Venek, the oldest surviving member of the council. "They have promised," Krelvox replied simply. "And if they come, what can they possibly do against the Hive?" asked military commander Zixnar. "Their ships would be swallowed by the first singularity weapon they encountered." Krelvox had no answer for that. The human response had been confident, too confident. Were they simply unaware of what they faced? The debate continued for hours. Some argued they should continue running. Others suggested surrender, though the Hive Collective had shown no interest in accepting surrenders before. In the end, they decided to wait the 24 hours. They had few other options. Krelvox returned to his ship and his viewing chamber. He found himself drawn to the stars again, wondering if somewhere out there humans were truly coming to their aid. "Ambassador," a young communications officer called from the doorway. "Our long-range sensors have detected something unusual. A spatial distortion is forming at the edge of our scanning range." "The Hive?" Krelvox asked, his body tensing. "No, sir. The energy signature is different. Nothing like we've seen before." Krelvox hurried to the bridge. The main display showed a swirling anomaly forming in space. It was unlike the rips that Hive ships created. This was more structured, more controlled. "It's been 18 hours since the human message," Mielik said quietly beside him. The anomaly expanded, creating a perfect circle of distorted space. From within it emerged a single ship. It was unlike any vessel Krelvox had ever seen, sleek and gleaming, with impossible geometries that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the standard 4. The ship was marked with unfamiliar symbols, and a simple designation that the translator rendered as UES Redemption. "We're receiving a transmission," the communications officer said. A human face appeared on the screen. Female, with dark skin and short black hair. "This is Captain Samantha Wells of the United Earth Vessel Redemption," she said. "Zeraxian fleet, we've come to repay our debt." 24 hours earlier, Admiral Lisa Blackwood stood before the Emergency Planetary Council in Geneva. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue uniform was decorated with medals from 3 interstellar conflicts. The circular chamber was filled with 50 representatives from Earth's unified government. "The Zeraxians have called in their favor," Lisa said, her voice echoing in the quiet room. "They are facing extinction at the hands of an enemy force called the Hive Collective." The large screen behind her showed images of the Zeraxian refugee fleet and approaching Hive vessels. The Hive ships were strange, organic-looking constructions that pulsed with sickly green energy. "With all due respect, Admiral," said Counselor Peter Mason, rising from his seat, "what exactly can we offer against an enemy that defeated the Zeraxians? They were centuries ahead of us technologically when they saved our colonists." Lisa's face remained calm. "Counselor, those 60 years since we entered the galactic stage have been productive. The Zeraxians had no way of knowing what direction our development would take." She pressed a button on her small remote. The screen changed to show a massive orbital structure surrounding Jupiter's moon Europa. "Project Prometheus has reached completion," she said simply. The chamber erupted in surprised whispers. "You can't be serious," said Counselor Judy Martinez, leaning forward in her seat. "That was theoretical, a thought experiment." "Not anymore," Lisa replied. "The Prometheus system works. We've successfully tested it in the Kuiper Belt, away from prying eyes." "And you believe it can stand against these Hive weapons?" asked Council. President George Harris. Lisa nodded. The hive uses weaponized singularities, essentially controlled black holes. But they're still bound by the laws of physics as we understand them. Prometheus operates on a different level entirely. The room fell silent as the council members absorbed this information. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? President Harris finally asked. Operation Payback, Lisa answered. Lisa, we deploy the UES Redemption with the Prometheus system and save the Zeraxian refugees. The vote took less than 10 minutes. It was unanimous. 3 hours later, Lisa stood in the control center beneath Europa's icy surface. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the massive Prometheus device, a swirling construction of exotic materials that seemed to bend light around it. Captain Samantha Wells and Science Director Alan Reyes approached her. Both wore the black uniforms of the Special Projects Division. The Redemption is ready, Admiral, Samantha reported. Crew is aboard, and the Prometheus system is fully integrated. Are you certain you want to command this mission, Captain? Lisa asked. The risk factor is still unknown. Samantha smiled slightly. My grandfather was William Carter. He was on the Golden Horizon when the Zeraxians saved them. This mission is personal for me. Lisa nodded in understanding. Very well. Director? Reyes, any last-minute concerns? Alan adjusted his glasses nervously. We've only done small-scale tests. Using Prometheus at this level is, well, it's unprecedented. The math works out, but there are always unknown variables when you're dealing with fundamental cosmic equations. Noted, Lisa said, but we're out of options. The Zeraxians have less than 2 days before the Hive fleet reaches them. They walked together to the observation deck overlooking the docking bay, where the UES Redemption waited. The ship was unlike any vessel humans had built before. Its hull was a shifting, multi-layered construction that seemed to exist partially out of phase with normal reality. Beautiful, isn't she? Samantha said proudly. The first ship capable of dimensional transit. Not just faster than light travel, Alan added, but actual movement through higher dimensional spaces. We fold space rather than traveling through it. Lisa looked at the two officers. Remember your mission parameters. This is a rescue operation, not a military engagement. Extract the Zeraxian fleet if possible. If not, evacuate as many of their people as you can. And if the Hive attacks us directly, Samantha asked, then you show them why it's a bad idea to make enemies of humanity. Lisa replied, her voice hard. An hour later, the Redemption detached from its docking clamps. The ship hovered silently above Europa's icy surface before accelerating upward. It moved with impossible grace, leaving no exhaust trail or energy signature. Once clear of Jupiter's gravity well, the Redemption activated its dimensional drive. Space itself seemed to bend around the vessel. A perfect circle of distorted reality formed in front of it, and the ship slipped through, vanishing from our universe entirely. Aboard the Redemption, Samantha sat in the captain's chair on the bridge. Around her, 20 crew members worked at various stations. The interior of the ship was as unusual as its exterior. Control surfaces were minimal, with most operations happening through neural interfaces. Dimensional transition complete, reported Navigation Officer Peter Kelly. We're in the fold space now. Looking at the main screen, Samantha saw the strange non-space of the dimensional fold. It wasn't black like normal space, but a swirling mix of colors that human eyes weren't meant to process. Most of the crew avoided looking directly at it. How long until we reach the Zeraxian coordinates? She asked. 17 hours if we maintain current transit speed, Alan replied from his science station. The Prometheus field is stable at 97% efficiency. Samantha nodded. Run a full diagnostic on all systems. I want everything perfect when we arrive. As the ship moved through dimensional space, Samantha thought about her grandfather. William Carter had told her stories about the Zeraxians when she was a child, how tall they were with their 6 limbs and blue-gray skin, how they had treated the human colonists with respect despite considering them primitive, how he had promised that humanity would repay the debt someday. William hadn't lived to see how far humanity had come. After the first contact with the Zeraxians, humans had taken a different path than most species. Rather than focusing on conventional space travel and weapons, human scientists had become obsessed with understanding the fundamental laws of reality itself. The Prometheus Project was the culmination of 60 years of this research. Technology that didn't just use the laws of physics but could temporarily rewrite them in a limited area. "Captain," Alan called from his station, interrupting her thoughts. "I'm picking up unusual energy readings from the destination coordinates. The Hive fleet is accelerating. They'll reach the Zeraxians in less than 20 hours. "Can we increase speed?" Samantha asked. "We can push the dimensional drive to maximum," Chief Engineer Grace Martinez suggested. "It's risky, but it could cut our arrival time to 14 hours. "Do it," Samantha ordered. The Redemption surged forward through the dimensional fold, its engines straining against the fabric of reality itself. Warning lights flashed at several stations, but the ship held together. 14 hours later, they arrived at the edge of the Zeraxian refugee fleet's position. The Redemption emerged from dimensional space in a flash of light and spatial distortion. "Hive fleet detected," announced Tactical Officer Ben Williams. 57 vessels approaching from Sector 4. They're still 18 hours out. "Open a channel to the Zeraxian flagship," Samantha ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall blue-gray alien with 6 limbs and large compound eyes. "This is Captain Samantha Wells of the United Earth Vessel Redemption," she said. "Zeraxian fleet, we've come to repay our debt." The alien's translator converted his clicking speech. "This is Ambassador Krelvox. We are grateful for your response, Captain Wells. But I must ask, what can one ship do against 57 Hive vessels?" Samantha smiled. "Ambassador, what you're seeing isn't exactly one ship. The Redemption exists partially in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, and we've brought something that will change the rules of this confrontation entirely." She nodded to Alan, who activated the Prometheus system. The Redemption began to glow with a soft azure light that seemed to bend reality around it. "Get ready, Ambassador," Samantha said. "Humanity pays its debts in full." Ambassador Krelvox stared at the human ship on the main screen. The vessel was unlike anything he had ever seen. It seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it existed in multiple places at once. The soft blue glow surrounding it made his compound eyes struggle to focus properly. "Captain Wells," he said carefully, "we appreciate your arrival, but the Hive Collective uses weaponized singularities. Black holes as weapons. I must warn you of the danger." The human female on the screen smiled. "We're aware of their technology. Ambassador, we've been monitoring the Hive for some time." She turned slightly to speak to someone off-screen. "How long until they're in range?" a male voice responded. "At current speed, 17 hours and 43 minutes, Captain." Krelvox's aide Melix leaned close. "One ship, Ambassador. They sent one ship." "A remarkable ship," Krelvox replied quietly. He raised his voice to address the human captain again. "Captain Wells, our fleet carries the last 3 million Zeraxians in existence. May I ask what plan you have against 57 Hive warships?" "Ambassador, I'd like to send my science director to your ship to explain. Would you permit a shuttle to dock?" Krelvox looked to Elder Venick, who had joined him on the bridge. The ancient Zeraxian gave a slight movement of his upper limbs, the equivalent of a nod. "We would welcome your representative, Captain," Krelvox responded. 30 minutes later, a small craft detached from the human vessel. It moved with the same strange, fluid motion as its parent ship, leaving no energy trail. It docked with the Zeraxian flagship with perfect precision. Krelvox, Elder Venick, and Military Commander Zixnar waited in the docking bay as the airlock cycled. The human who stepped through was male, with dark hair, glasses, and a serious expression. He carried a small device in his hands. Science Director Alan Reyes, he introduced himself with a slight bow. "Thank you for allowing me aboard, Ambassador." "These are Elder Venick and Military Commander Zixnar," Krelvox introduced his companions. "We are most curious about your solution to our situation." Alan followed the Zeraxians to a conference room. The space was designed for the taller aliens, making the human look small as he took a seat at the large table. Before I explain our plan, Alan began, I need to understand how much you know about dimensional physics. Zixnar made a sharp clicking sound that the translator didn't catch. We are not primitives, human. We understand multiple dimensions beyond the standard 4. Alan nodded. Of course, I meant no offense. But what I'm about to explain goes beyond conventional understanding. He placed his device on the table. It projected a holographic display showing complex equations and models. When your people rescued our colonists 60 years ago, it sparked something in humanity. We realized how far behind we were technologically. But rather than trying to catch up by following the same development path as other species, we took a different approach. The hologram shifted to show a strange, swirling structure. This is the Prometheus system. Instead of building better weapons to work within the laws of physics, we found a way to temporarily rewrite those laws themselves. Elder Vennick leaned forward, his ancient eyes widening. That's impossible. Not impossible, Alan corrected gently. Just extremely difficult and previously unachieved. The Prometheus system creates a localized bubble where we can adjust fundamental cosmic constants. Within that bubble, we decide which physical laws apply and which don't. The 3 Ziraxians stared at the human in stunned silence. You're saying, Zixnar finally spoke, that you can change reality itself? In a limited area and for a limited time, Alan confirmed. But yes, and that's how we plan to defeat the Hive Collective. Back aboard the UES Redemption, Captain Samantha Wells was preparing her crew for what was to come. The bridge was a hive of activity as officers monitored the approaching enemy fleet. Tactical analysis complete, reported Ben Williams. Hive. Vessels are consistent with known configurations. Primary weapons are singularity projectors. Secondary weapons include plasma cannons and graviton beams. Defensive capabilities? Samantha asked. Multi-layered energy shields and some form of temporal distortion field around their engines. They're well-armed, Captain. Samantha nodded. They would be. Navigation, position us between the Ziraxian fleet and the approaching Hive ships. Maintain dimensional stability at 85%. I want them to see us clearly. Yes, Captain, Peter, Kelly responded, his fingers dancing across the control interface. Grace Martinez spoke up from the engineering station. Captain, the Prometheus system is ready for Phase 1 deployment. Core temperature optimal. Thank you, Chief. Stand by. Samantha opened a channel to the Ziraxian flagship. Ambassador, we're moving into position. I recommend your fleet maintain its current formation. Things are about to get interesting. On the Ziraxian flagship, Alan Reyes continued his explanation to the increasingly astonished alien leaders. The Hive Collective's weapons create micro-singularities, essentially small black holes that consume matter, he said. These weapons operate based on gravitational principles and quantum collapse. We know how they work, Zixnar said impatiently. We lost billions to them. Yes, Alan acknowledged with a sympathetic nod. But what if gravity didn't work the same way? What if the quantum principles that allow their weapons to function simply changed? Krelvox's breathing sacs expanded rapidly. You're proposing to change the fundamental nature of reality, to render their weapons useless. Exactly, Alan confirmed. The Prometheus system will create a bubble around this entire region of space. Within that bubble, we'll adjust the gravitational constant and modify quantum coherence principles. Their singularity weapons won't just fail, they'll backfire. A communication officer burst into the room. Commander, the Hive fleet has accelerated. They'll be in weapons range in less than an hour. Zixnar rose quickly. How? They were 17 hours away at last scan. They must have detected the human ship, Krelvox said, turning to Alan. Is your system ready? It is, Alan replied, touching a control on his wrist device. Captain Wells, the Hive has accelerated. They'll be here within the hour. Samantha's voice came through clearly. Acknowledged, returning to the Redemption immediately. Ambassador, prepare your people. Things may get turbulent when we activate the Prometheus field. As Alan hurried back to his shuttle, alarm klaxons sounded throughout the Ziraxian fleet. On every ship, Frightened refugees prepared for what might be their final stand. Aboard the Redemption, Alan returned to the bridge just as the first hive ships appeared on the long-range sensors. "They've made quite the effort to get here quickly," Samantha observed. "They must be very interested in our ship. The Prometheus system likely registers as an anomaly to their sensors," Alan explained, taking his station. "They would detect energy patterns they've never encountered before." "Good," Samantha said with a grim smile. "I want their complete attention. Open a channel to the hive fleet." After a moment, Communications Officer Lily Chen reported, "Channel open, Captain. No response yet." "This is Captain Samantha Wells of the United Earth Vessel Redemption," Samantha broadcast. "Hive collective forces, you are ordered to withdraw from this sector immediately. The Zeraxian people are under Earth's protection." The main screen flickered and displayed a strange insectoid face. The creature appeared to be partially mechanical, with glowing green cybernetic implants covering much of its head. "We are the Hive," it said, in a voice that sounded like multiple beings speaking at once. "We do not recognize your authority. The Zeraxians will be consumed. You will be consumed." "I was hoping you'd say something like that," Samantha replied calmly. "It makes what comes next much easier to justify." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "Battle stations, activate the Prometheus system." Throughout the ship, crew members secured themselves in preparation. The Redemption's gentle hum rose to a more insistent pulse. "Prometheus activation in 3, 2, 1. Grace counted down. The azure glow surrounding the Redemption suddenly expanded outward in a perfect sphere, growing larger by the second. Within minutes, it had encompassed the entire Zeraxian fleet and extended toward the approaching hive ships. The lead hive vessel fired its main weapon, a concentrated beam of energy that created a small black hole where it impacted. The Singularity shot toward the Redemption and vanished completely before reaching its target. "Phase 1 successful," Alan reported, studying his readings. "Local gravitational constant has been modified. Their singularity weapons cannot maintain cohesion in this environment," Samantha smiled. "Now for Phase 2. Let's show them what happens when humanity pays its debts." The hive ships paused their advance. Their failed attack seemed to confuse them. After a moment, 5 ships moved forward in a tight formation. They fired simultaneously, each creating a singularity that should have torn the human vessel apart. Again, the black hole simply winked out of existence before reaching the Redemption. Aboard the Zeraxian flagship, Ambassador Krelvox and his leaders watched in amazement. "Impossible," whispered Military Commander Zixnar. "I've seen those weapons consume entire battle fleets." "The humans have changed the rules," Elder Vennick said quietly. "Just as they said they would." On the main screen, they could see the Redemption, holding position. The blue field surrounding it now encompassed their entire fleet. "Ambassador," came Captain Wells's voice over the communication system. "Are you seeing this?" "We are," Krelvox confirmed. "Their weapons, they simply vanish. Phase 1 of the Prometheus system alters the gravitational constant within this region of space," Captain Wells explained. "Singularities can't form properly, but now we need to show them we're not just defensive." The main screen showed the Redemption beginning to pulse with a brighter blue light. Suddenly, the human ship split into multiple identical copies. First 5, then 20, then over 100. "What are we seeing?" asked Melix, her voice full of wonder. "Quantum multiplication," Elder Vennick guessed. "They're creating probability duplicates." Aboard the Redemption, Samantha watched as her tactical display showed the copies of her ship surrounding the hive fleet. "Probability duplicate stable at 98% coherence," reported Alan from his science station. 127 versions of us currently exist simultaneously." "Impressive," Samantha said with a nod. "Let's move to Phase 2, target their lead vessel." The copies of the Redemption moved in perfect synchronization, arranging themselves in a sphere around the largest hive ship. Phase 2, activation in 3, 2, 1. Grace counted down from engineering. Each copy of the Redemption fired a thin beam of blue light toward the hive vessel. Where the beams met, reality itself seemed to warp and bend. "What's happening to that ship?" Samantha asked, squinting at the display. "Its quantum state is becoming uncertain," Alan explained. "We're not destroying it. We're editing it out of reality." On the screen, the massive hive ship seemed to become transparent, its edges blurring. Then, without any explosion or visible damage, it simply disappeared. It didn't break apart or collapse. It simply ceased to exist. "Target eliminated," Ben reported from Tactical. "No debris, no energy release. It's just gone." The remaining hive ships immediately changed formation, pulling back and regrouping. "They're confused," Peter noted from navigation. "Their sensors must be telling them the ship still exists in some form, but not in this reality. Open a channel to the hive." "Again," Samantha ordered. The insectoid face appeared once more on the screen. This time, there was a noticeable change in its demeanor. The multiple voices sounded less certain. "What have you done?" the hive demanded. "We've moved your ship to a parallel probability state," Samantha explained calmly. "It exists, but not in this reality. We can do the same to your entire fleet." "This technology is unknown to us," the hive admitted. "How have you achieved this?" "Humanity took a different path," Samantha replied. "While you were building bigger weapons, we were learning to rewrite the equations that make reality work." The hive was silent for a moment. Then, with obvious anger, it declared, "We will not retreat. The Zeraxians will be consumed." The connection cut off. The remaining hive ships began to spread out, attempting to flank the human vessel and its copies. "They're trying to find a weakness in our field," Ben reported. "Let them try," Samantha said confidently. "Maintain Phase 2 status. Target any ship that comes within range." Over the next hour, 3 more hive vessels approached too close and suffered the same fate as the first, edited out of reality without violence or destruction. On the Zeraxian flagship, Krelvox and his leaders continued to watch in amazement. "4 of their most powerful ships gone," Zixnar said, his military mind struggling to understand the tactic. "No explosion, no debris, no chance to adapt or defend." "It is not warfare as we understand it," Elder Vennick noted. "It is reality manipulation on a scale I would have deemed impossible." The communication system chimed and Captain Wells appeared on their screen. "Ambassador, the hive is preparing for a coordinated attack. They're gathering their ships for a simultaneous assault from multiple vectors." "Can your technology withstand such an attack?" Krelvox asked. "We're about to find out," Samantha replied honestly. "The Prometheus system has never been tested against this many targets at once. We recommend your fleet move behind us just in case." Krelvox gave the order, and the Zeraxian ships began a careful retreat, positioning themselves behind the human vessel and its many copies. The hive launched their assault. 52 ships attacked from different directions, firing not just singularity weapons but also plasma cannons and graviton beams. The Redemption's duplicates moved to intercept, creating a complex 3-dimensional web around the attacking fleet. The graviton beams and plasma blasts hit the blue field and dissipated harmlessly. "Prometheus field holding at 82% efficiency," Grace reported, her voice tense. "Multiple impact points." "The copies are destabilizing," Alan added. "We're down to 94 duplicates." Samantha gripped the arms of her command chair. "Initiate Phase 3. Throughout the ship, crew members braced themselves. The Redemption's hum rose to a high-pitched whine as power redirected to the Prometheus core. "Phase 3 activated," Grace confirmed. The blue field surrounding the ship and its copies suddenly pulsed with blinding intensity. When the light faded, something had changed. The space around the hive fleet appeared distorted, as if viewed through warped glass. "Causality bubble established," Alan reported. "Local space-time is now isolated from the rest of the universe." Samantha opened a channel to all ships, both Zeraxian and hive. "This is Captain Wells. I have just activated a causality isolation field. Nothing can enter or leave this region of space without our permission. The laws of physics within this bubble are now entirely under our control." The hive ships attempted to open their own spatial rifts to escape. The rifts formed briefly, then collapsed. "You cannot run," Samantha continued. "You cannot fight. Your weapons are useless, your means of escape are blocked. The only option remaining is surrender." For several tense minutes there was no response. Then, one by one, the hive ships powered down their weapon systems. The insectoid face appeared on the screen once more. "We will withdraw," the multiple voices said with obvious reluctance. "Release us from this bubble first," Samantha countered. "You will agree to a permanent treaty with the Zeraxian people. They are to be left in peace, with territory sufficient for their civilization to rebuild." "The hive does not make treaties," came the reply. "Then the hive will remain trapped here until you reconsider," Samantha said simply. "We can maintain this causality bubble indefinitely." Another long pause followed. Finally, the hive responded, "We will accept these terms." "Wise decision," Samantha said. She turned to Krelvox on a separate channel. "Ambassador, please prepare a diplomatic team to negotiate the specifics of this treaty. We'll ensure the hive honors its word." Krelvox's breathing sacs expanded with emotion. "Captain Wells, I lack the words to express our gratitude. You have saved our entire species." Samantha smiled. "We made a promise 60 years ago, Ambassador. Humanity pays its debts." As the Zeraxian diplomats prepared to meet with the hive representatives under human supervision, the crew of the Redemption allowed themselves to relax slightly. They had faced an enemy that had nearly destroyed an advanced civilization and had prevailed without firing a single conventional weapon. "Quite the show of force," Alan commented quietly to Samantha on the bridge. "Not force," she corrected. "Understanding. Knowledge. The Zeraxians were right to rescue those colonists all those years ago. They just never imagined how differently we would develop." She looked at the main screen where the hive ships now waited passively within the causality bubble. "When humanity owes you a favor," she said, "you get something beyond imagination." 3 weeks later, Ambassador Krelvox stood in a large chamber aboard the United Earth diplomatic station Harmony. The space had been designed to accommodate many different species comfortably. Krelvox wore ceremonial robes in the blue and silver colors of the old Zeraxian Empire. Around him were representatives from 17 different alien civilizations. Many had traveled great distances after hearing about what the humans had done. The defeat of the Hive Collective had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Blackwood entered the chamber, followed by Captain Samantha Wells and Science Director Alan Reyes. The humans looked small compared to many of the aliens present, but everyone's attention focused on them immediately. "Ambassador Krelvox," Admiral Blackwood began formally, "the debt humanity owed to the Zeraxian people has been repaid. The Hive Collective has signed and committed to the peace treaty, which gives your people 3 star systems within our protective sphere. Your civilization will have the chance to rebuild." Krelvox stepped forward. His translator converted his clicks and whistles into smooth English. "Admiral, my people once thought ourselves advanced. We saw humans as primitive but charming creatures. When we saved those few colonists, we never imagined what you would become." He looked around at the assembled representatives. "Many species here developed along similar paths. We mastered faster than light travel. We built more powerful weapons, we expanded outward. But humans..." He turned back to Lisa. "Humans looked inward. You questioned reality itself." Lisa smiled slightly. "We had good teachers. Your rescue of our colonists showed us how far behind we were, but it also showed us that there might be different paths forward." From the side of the chamber, an elderly human man in a hover chair moved forward. Despite his age, his eyes were bright and alert. "William Carter," Krelvox said in surprise, recognizing the human from 60 years before. William nodded. "I was beginning to think I wouldn't live long enough to see our debt repaid, Ambassador. I'm glad I was wrong." Krelvox performed a formal bow with all 6 of his limbs, a gesture of deepest respect in Zeraxian culture. "The debt has been more than repaid. You have saved our entire species." Admiral Blackwood stepped forward again. "The treaty with the Hive is just the beginning. We've prepared a data package for your scientists, Ambassador. It contains the basic principles of our dimensional research. Not the complete Prometheus system. That knowledge must be carefully managed, but enough to help your people develop in new directions. Alan Reyes added, We've also modified a section of space near your new home systems. The physical constants there are adjusted to prevent the formation of singularity weapons. The hive won't be able to attack you again, even if they wanted to. A tall, purple-skinned alien stepped forward from the crowd. Ambassador Nirvalak of the Tressian Confederation was known across the galaxy as a shrewd diplomat. Admiral Blackwood, the Tressian said, This demonstration of power changes everything. The ability to rewrite physical laws, even temporarily and locally, makes your species the most powerful in known space. The room grew quiet. Many of the representatives shifted nervously. Are we witnessing the birth of a new galactic empire? Nirvalak asked directly. Lisa looked around the room calmly. No, Ambassador. Humanity has no interest in empire building. The Prometheus system was developed to protect, not to conquer. Yet you could conquer if you wished, another representative called out. We could, Samantha acknowledged. But that's not who we are. The first contact humanity had with alien life was the Zeraxians rescuing our people. That shaped us. We learned that advanced civilizations can choose to be kind when they have power. William Carter spoke up from his hover chair. When the Zeraxians found us, they could have taken our ship, studied our technology, kept us as specimens. Instead, they helped us and asked for nothing in return. That's the example we choose to follow. Lisa nodded in agreement. The Prometheus system is not a weapon, it's a tool. We used it to save the Zeraxians, yes, but its real purpose is greater. With it, we can reshape dead worlds to support life. We can stabilize dying stars. We can create safe zones where no species need fear extinction. You would share this power? Nirvalak asked skeptically. No, Lisa replied honestly. Not directly. The potential for misuse is too great. But we will use it to help where we can. And perhaps in time other species will discover their own paths to similar technologies. Krell clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. This changes the balance of power in the galaxy. It does, Lisa agreed. But let me be clear about our intentions. Any species that threatens extinction to another will face us. Any attempt to develop planet-killing weapons will be met with intervention. Beyond that, we have no wish to interfere. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as the representatives absorbed these words. Some looked worried, others relieved. And, what do you ask in return for this protection? Another alien called out. Samantha stepped forward. Nothing, we offer it freely. No species does anything for free, the alien insisted. William Carter laughed softly. 60 years ago I made a promise to the Zeraxians that humanity would repay its debt. They asked for nothing, but we remembered. Perhaps that's something to consider. After the formal meeting ended, Krell found himself in a smaller room with the human leaders. Large windows showed the curve of Earth below the station. What happens now? He asked. Now your people rebuild, Lisa said gently. We've prepared transport ships to take your refugees to their new homeworlds. Our engineers will help you establish colonies. Krellvox's breathing sacs expanded and contracted slowly. In one day, everything changed. The hive was unstoppable. My people were facing extinction. Then one human ship arrived and now we have a future again. Just as your ship arrived for our colonists, Samantha pointed out. There is a difference, Krellvox said. We saved 12 humans, you saved 3 million Zeraxians. Alan smiled. The number doesn't matter. The principle does. Perhaps, Krellvox conceded. But I find myself wondering what would have happened if we had ignored that human ship all those years ago. William moved his hover chair closer. Then someone else would have been the first aliens humanity met, and perhaps we would have developed differently. The elderly human reached out a wrinkled hand. After a moment of hesitation, Krellvox extended. One of his upper limbs, the human and alien touched briefly. My grandfather told me stories about you, Samantha said, watching the exchange with a smile. He said you were the tallest, strangest thing he'd ever seen, but also the kindest. And now the galaxy will tell stories about humans, Krelvox replied. About the species that rewrote reality to save another. As the humans prepared to leave, Krelvox performed the formal bow once more. When a human owes you a favor, he said, prepare for something beyond imagination indeed. My people offer not our gratitude, but our partnership. Lisa Blackwood bowed in return. Partnership accepted, Ambassador. Together, we'll build a safer galaxy for all species. 1 month later, the last Zeraxian refugee ship arrived at their new homeworld. From the viewing deck, Krelvox and Elder Venick watched as the golden blue planet grew larger on the main screen. It looks like our old home, Venick said softly, before the hive came. The humans found it for us specifically, Krelvox explained. They searched thousands of star systems to find one that matched our biological needs. Below them, in the ship's main halls, thousands of Zeraxians prepared for their new beginning. Children who had known nothing but refugee ships would soon feel solid ground. Families who had lost everything would start again. They could rule the galaxy with their technology, Venick noted. Instead, they choose to help. They learned that from us, Krelvox said with pride. We showed kindness to a few lost humans, and they returned it 1,000,000-fold. As the ship began its landing sequence, Krelvox thought about the strange path that had led here. A simple act of decency 60 years ago had saved his entire species. The small, primitive beings his people had rescued had developed in ways no one could have predicted. The most powerful lesson, he realized, wasn't about technology at all. It was simpler than that. It was about remembering debts and keeping promises. It was about the unexpected consequences of kindness. When the ship touched down and the doors opened onto their new world, Krelvox was the first to step out. Above him, the unfamiliar sun warmed his skin. In the distance, mountains rose against a clear sky. And despite everything his people had lost, he felt something they had been missing for a long time. Hope. And somewhere across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, humans continued their research, pushing the boundaries of what was possible, ready to help when called upon, and always paying their debts. End.